Yes, sure. Okay.
Okay, proceed to main event. Start from number one. From your awareness, what is Belt and Road Initiatives?
For me, because I am studying China for the last 7 years very closely, especially the Chinese culture, the Chinese economic system, and how China is trying to engage the very downtrodden and the communities that is underdeveloping or into the developing phase. So the Belt and Road is, we can say that the new world order. I can also say this as a Eastern world order. And with this Belt and Road order, because, when connectivity is involved, when there is communication and the transportation from one place to another place, I think that plays a very huge role into the current world order. And because the West have different model. If you see that the US and the Europe and the other alliance, so we see that many developing countries in South Asia and Asia Pacific, so we see very clearly that the the partnership of these Western countries is only to a few elite class people. But China is coming up with its model in which they are going to make the partners the very grassroots level people, the people who are very much underdeveloped, who are very much under the lower level of the poverty level. That layer actually China want to uplift. And with this, the President Xi, the Chinese president, has taken an initiative of the Belt and Road. So Belt and Road is, if we can go more into the broader perspective. So Belt and Road is actually going to be a game changer, not only a few countries, but almost currently there are more than 70 plus countries who are directly or indirectly going to be facilitated or going to be benefit from this project. So Belt and Road is actually in real, if we can say, into the real exact meaning without any prejudice and without any biasness. So we can see that the Belt and Road is really the project that is going to be give the opportunity to every people on the planet Earth to be the partner of the economic change and the economic uplifting.
Okay. Any follow-up question from others?
I think it's good, Ran. We can go on to the next question.
Okay. As we know, China is currently collaborating with several developing countries, including Indonesia, to become their partner and Belt and Road initiatives. What is the real purpose of carrying out these initiatives?
So no, East Asian countries, China has a very strong bond, especially with the East Asian countries. And when you talk about the Indonesia, Indonesia is the country that is much importance in the East Asian countries, because all the trade, everything goes from Indonesia to all the other East Asian countries. So Indonesia is the gateway of all the East Asian countries.
So
yeah,
the
I saw there is some problem in the connection.
Kind of.
Yeah, it's okay now.
Any follow-up question?
Okay. Sir, I just want to ask something, sir. I think you may have heard of this before, right? The Chinese usually use what they call Chinese debt trap diplomacy, right? This is when, yeah. So is this, what do you think of this Chinese debt trap diplomacy, sir? Is it really the one of the purpose of China initiating the Belt and Road Initiative, or is this just a narrative made by the West? What do you think, sir?
Exactly. This is a very important question, and I would like to elaborate and explain this question. So the problem is this, that the West is losing its hegemony because they is controlling the countries through the International Monetary Fund, other financial institutions. So that trap is something like completely hoax and a fake propaganda against China, because you see that there is no more bad trap there is no more worst or the bad trap than the West and the US that they have. Rather than you can explain it to say that the China is going to be the debt trap. This is something like this, that how China could be a debt trap, because when China is going to be some sort of making the trains and the other stuff. Chinese never occupied any country, not even a single country that you can say that the China is going to be occupy or going to be some sort of the into the debt or some sort of that thing. It's always West. We see that what's now happening, like in Middle East, what the Americans did. They bombed Iraq, they bombed Syria, they bombed Libya, they bombed many other countries. In South Africa, the situation is also the same. So this is something like this, that when the United States dollar is facing a big challenge right now, because the countries around the world, they are going to trade into their local currencies, or they are going to trade into the Chinese RMB. So at this stage, when the West is losing this economic competition, they are going to use this kind of the propaganda that China has the debt diplomacy or some sort of this kind of the rubbish. So I think that is totally something misleading and baseless.
So in your own opinion, it's only a narrative, right? This Chinese debt trap.
Yeah, this is my opinion. This is my opinion and my observation.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Maybe you guys have any other follow-up? Okay, I think it's good. You can continue, Ran.
Okay, for the next question. Is the Belt and Road Initiative a multi-regionalism? If so, is this multi-regionalism the result of multipolarization?
Of course, this multipolar concept is coming after this Belt and Road Initiative, and because you know that there was the monopoly and the control of the United States. When we see that is going to be reduced, because now we see that there are previously you can say that there is only one unilateral order that is implemented by the Americans, but now it's very hard for the America to put its order into the world, because the world is not going to listen what America is saying in form of the dictation to the world. We see what happened like now in the Ukraine Russia situation. So countries are not listening America. European Union and Americans, they are saying that don't buy oil from Russia. So the many countries are not going to listen Americans, that why the other countries will not buy the oil from the Russia. So this new concept of the multipolar world is the need and it's the desire under the right now in the especially when the world is facing this worst economic crisis. At this time, I think that this multipolar order is the need of this important time. And we see that now there are three main power corridors in the world. So you can say America is the one is the Russia, and then China. So these three power corridors, it's going to be form a multipolar world in which the decision is not only made by one country, but there are other countries who are also as a sharing partner, or they are going to contribute their willingness into the global decisions. So we see a very clear decline into the American authoritative agenda in the world. So we see that now it's getting hard for Americans. That country, there was a one phone call from the White House or somebody else from the US State Department to any country in South Asia, and they start immediately following them. Now I think it's getting hard for Americans to establish their agenda, especially in this multipolar world.
I see that. Any follow-up question?
I think I have another follow-up, sir. It's regarding the perspective of America, the US on China. Maybe in this multipolar world, sir, how does the US, the United States, perceive China as their own partner, sir? I mean, they have been collaborating and their economy has been collaborating for years, right? But I think now, in my opinion, they see China as sort of a threat. Maybe. What do you see in the U.S.-China relationship?
Yeah, China-US relation always very interesting, and they are the biggest trading partner with each other. And there is always initiatives taken by the Chinese to have, because China is not going in any form of the confrontation. Chinese don't want confrontation with any other country. This is their policy, because they are business minded. They have economic trade. They want to boost the businesses, and they want to, because this is their history, their 5,000 history, that China never want confrontation with any country. You see, they never went out for some sort of the conflict or for some sort of the war. It's always Americans who have this kind of the policy. So under this situation, the confliction or the collision is not in the favor of the any country. So it's better, and the Chinese mostly trying that the US should not take them to that point. That requires to be that is something like the bottom line for the China. Like Taiwan is one of the bottom line of the China, because when US is going to be use Taiwan, or Taiwan trying to be some sort of the misadventure with Chinese. So of course, then Chinese have the under one China principle. China strongly defend this Taiwan as a part of the China, and so I think that these are the issues in which the US is trying to be using as a tool to create conflict and the collision. So, but I think that for the peace and for the global economy, I think that the cooperation between the US and the Chinese, I think the peaceful cooperation is a best way to move forward.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I have actually I have another follow-up, sir.
Yes.
I think in regards to how China positions themselves again. I think there is a theory, right? I've read about the theory of world capitalist system, where core countries they need periphery and semi-periphery countries in order to grow, right? For example, the US, they're a core country, and the US they use periphery countries or semi-periphery countries to boost their order and to boost their hegemony, right? So I think the Belt and Road Initiative, this is sort of like that, sir. I think. What do you think, sir? Is China going to be the next United States, or what do you think, sir?
Of course, China is one of the largest now the biggest economy, and of course, Chinese have a future plan in which they will definitely have their say, or have their some sort of the you can say as a global player. They are, and they will have the more influence, of course. But I feel that their system of collaboration with the world is not as the US. They have their theory of the sharing partner. So they will definitely engage the countries to become the partner into this development wherever it is in the world. It's not like the US, because US has a different approach. They are it's very complex and it's very tricky, because at one side they are supporting the human rights, and these human rights, actually you can say that when in the US we have seen the biggest human rights violations, right? You see what happened in France in the rights, how the police use this kind of the stuff. And if this happened in any other country, you see European Union and international court and everything. And what happened in Palestine? Nobody talk about the Palestine, like Jenin, how the Israel war crimes is killing the people there. But they only see that there is a Ukraine, always Ukraine, because Ukraine, the whole world is united. They are behind American interest, and they are protecting the American interest. But we will not see, I think, that this kind of the situation that they are going to, China will have this kind of the collaboration. You see what happened in Middle East in China. They are playing, and they are doing a very good foreign policy there.
I see. Thank you, sir, for the answer. Next, you can go on.
Yes.
Okay, for next question, do you know what Indonesia has done in preparing for the Belt and Road initiatives?
I think Indonesia is one of the largest partner in the Belt and Road Initiative, and we see there is a lot of mega projects are going on. One of the mega project is just the new capital airport, I think this is one of the flagship project of the Belt and Road Initiative in Southeast Asian countries, and the new capital and the railway project. I think these are all one of the major projects that in Indonesia they are doing, and China and Indonesia has a very huge cooperation, especially in Belt and Road Initiative, and Indonesia is doing a very great balance between the West and between the China. And I think that, of course, these projects will be fruitful for the common people, and the Indonesian people will see a very, very positive impact of these projects at very grassroots level.
See, I also see that also. Any follow-up question?
Well, sir, I have another follow-up, sir.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, so Indonesia and China, and also in a sense the United States, they're both trading partners, right? So in a sense that, well, you know, China, they're investing in Indonesia through the Belt and Road Initiative, right? But the US, they're also trying to invest too, right? In a sense, right? But what do you think of the Indo-China-US relationship? Is it good or bad, sir? What do you think?
I think that Indonesia is according to the geostrategical and the geopolitical importance of the Indonesia, is a very important country. Chinese realize this thing, and Chinese are cooperating very closely with China, with Indonesia. Similarly, in the last, you can say that like the two tenures of the President Jokowi, the United States was not much involved there. They are trying though, but in the last 10 years, Indonesia is much closer to the China rather than to the US. So now we will see that which changes the United States is going to change, because United States is in the last 10 years in East Asian countries, we saw that the US is not, US almost lose very badly in terms of making the countries, because the countries know that US is exploit the countries and their capital and all these things. So let's see how then the Indonesian government and the United States is going to form the collaboration. But a positive cooperation is always be a good. But if there is a collaboration that US is going to exploit the Indonesia relations, I think that could be of course something like not very constructive. But I think that the Indonesia leadership is very much smart, and they are doing a really very good job in establishing their foreign policy. So I think they know the country's interest, and of course they will consider the importance of the Belt and Road Initiative. So I think that there is always an optimistic between the relation between the Indonesia and China.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for the answer. You may go run.
Thank you.
Okay, for our next question, Aribo, you can ask it.
Okay, so I'm going to be asking the next question. So, what do you think is the benefits of having the Belt and Road Initiative for Indonesia and Southeast Asia, as well as other countries?
I mentioned before that I did not mention very detailedly, but Indonesia importance like a gateway to the East Asian countries. Like everything is in East Asian countries that is coming from the Indonesia. So after the completion or after the completion of this Belt and Road Initiative, the connectivity of the Indonesia will be several times more between the other East Asian countries. So this connectivity, it will make a very positive impact on the GDP and the economic growth of the Indonesia. So you will see that especially this after this new capital and this transportation and every kind of the other stuff. So I think that the Indonesia will be among the boosting economies. Even now, according to the facts and figures, the Indonesian economy is one of the boosting economies in the world. And so it would have a very positive impact on the economy. of the Indonesia, especially when their economy will be grow. Of course, there will be infrastructure improvement. There will be the livelihood of the people that will be enhanced. So I think that this project will be one of the fruitful project for the Indonesia, and there will be definitely positive impact on this.
Okay. So how do you think Indonesia and as well as Southeast Asia take advantage of these Belt and Road initiatives?
The connectivity and the Belt and Road Initiative for every country, I think that it's the major part of this is the roads to roads and train to train and the other linkages of the countries to another countries. So this connectivity and the movement of goods without any hindrance or without any problem, that could be a very much you can say that helpful towards the roads tax, because you see that if the goods movement from the Indonesia to the other country, that will be a movement from one country to another country, and the flow of the goods. So when the flow of the goods will happen, of course the countries will definitely get the revenue in the form of the levy, in the form of the taxes, in the form of the road taxes, in the form of the import and export taxes. So this is something like the cooperation of the one country to another country, and every country is the winner in this. It's not only one country that is going to be benefit and the other will not. Every country have its own share. Like if movement's good from the Indonesia to Singapore, or Indonesia to some Malaysia or other border countries, so you see that of course something is going and something is receiving by on the other end. So this exchange of the goods will definitely is one of the increasing the economy of the country and revenue. So it's of course is beneficial for every country.
Okay, is there any follow-up question? Okay, I think we can move on. So the next question is, what are the challenges and risks of the Belt and Road initiatives?
The current challenge is, of course, the Western propaganda and the Western media narratives that is they are going to explain about the Belt, because they are trying to counter this through the negative propaganda. And even recently, we see that the US is started their own counter projects to counter these projects. But the problem is this, that who has more benefits? Because this project is initiated by China, and we saw that the initiative that is taken by the Chinese is much more as compared to the Americans, because they don't have this kind of the model in which the flow from one country to another country will go. There is a connection between the roads and bridges. There is a linkage between the ports around the world. There will be a maritime Silk Road. There will be a cross-border Silk Road. There will be, that different kind of, there is a complete map of the Belt and Road. So I think that the biggest challenge we see is now that the people should, and the countries should understand the real essence of the Belt and Road, rather than the Western propaganda, and especially those communities who are in minorities, because the West is always using the minorities and the human rights as a biggest tool to counter such kind of the propaganda of development. So the communities who are especially different kind of the minorities, ethnicities who are living, because the US is the so-called champion of the human rights, and simultaneously the US is largest human rights violator in the form of the killing of the innocent people into the Middle East, in Afghanistan, and in many other countries. But these human rights, it's never been understood or never been acknowledged by any country in the world, and the US is trying to cover up. So the communities, the countries who are the part of the Belt and Road Initiative, they should understand that there is a conspiracy of the United States to counter the Belt and Road. So they should understand that what is real and what is wrong. So they have to be a very clear information, and the information will come, of course, when they will get, they will read, or they will have the enough information from the real source, not from those sources who are biased and who have their own agenda to the readers.
Okay, is there any follow-up question?
Okay, I have a follow-up question. So, previously you said, sir, that the propaganda made by the US or the Western countries about these Belt Road initiatives are getting bigger. What are the evidence for this Western propaganda?
No, we see the evidence is this, that we see that when being a journalist, when we saw that when we go into some story and we see that because I am the mass communication student, I study the propaganda, how the propaganda will made and how it could be. So when there was the Iraq war happened, they say that there is a weapon of the mass weapon destruction and the biological weapon to the Saddam Hussein. They never find these weapon of the mass destruction. They never find, but they killed hundreds of thousands of the people. So this is how their media play a negative role. This is the one of the biggest example that we can quote. So what they did in Afghanistan, 20-year war, 20 years they were killing the people, Afghanistan people. And now you see what happened. They left abandoned. Everything was there. The people are living in the miserable condition. So they have, because the US has the fear that they will lose its control on the world. This is in their mind. And they think that this is due to China. But China is not going to lose the US control. China is going to be a partner, a trading partner with any country in the world. So if US cannot become the trading partner, US is just going to give benefit to a few communities in the world who are the powerful elites. If they are going to give the power to them, they are going to hire these people. They are going to get the benefits from these people. But the China is going to be the economic partner of the other countries. So what is the problem here? There is no problem here. So we see that this now, because they think that because when we see the development in the countries, other countries, because I travel many countries and I saw that Belt and Road is a game changer. I see the roads, especially the bridges, road and connectivity. You could be astonished at how much fast flow of the people are moving from there, from one place to another place. So this is, you see the train condition, like in China, if you travel to China and you see how modern and how fast their trains are. So it could be like 500 kilometers per hour. There are some trains who are moving with this speed. So I don't think so that the Americans have built any train in any other country with this speed. We know that when there was in subcontinent, India and Pakistan, when there was the British Empire, the trains have a specific limit that they cannot travel from 40 to 50 kilometers per hour. So this is all that we can say, that this is something like this, that this is the Chinese initiative who are taking up with this kind of thing. And the US is feared, because US is feared from the education, US is feared from the information, US is feared from the awareness to the people, especially those communities in which US have a strong control on their minds through this media control. And whatever published in the media, whatever broadcast in the media, people will believe, because this media has a very strong vested interest. It has a very strong protection of the Americans' world order in the world. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I have one follow-up question. You said earlier that in regards to Afghanistan and other Asian country, US made a lot of destruction to those countries. But I've seen a lot of narratives in the Western media that America also teach democracies to them, and China with this policy, Belt and Road policy, gonna destroy the democracy di sekitarnya. You can translate it, Reza. I'm sorry.
I think that the democracy in the United States, they have democracy because they have a very strong system of thousands of years. Like you can say, not thousands of years, but hundreds of years, you can say, because they make a very strong democratic system. But the problem is this, that in other countries, like in other democracies, there are weak countries where the democracy is quite weak. So they exploit, they manipulate that democracy, and then they blackmail those countries. But if you see the Chinese system of the governance, China has their own socialist democratic system. So if you see inside the Chinese system, that how the Chinese system is governed, that is very systematic. That is very, very systematic, and there is a huge reforms, like how China, if you see the development inside China, it could be like an amazing model of the socialist democratic governance system. That how they control the poverty, how they end the poverty. So if your question, I can say that China is that the US is empowering democracy. I will not agree on this question, because US is not empowering democracy. US is only making problem there and making the democracies weak. And then these democracies, they will push them to serve for the American interest. They have regime change. They will change. They can make regime change in any country. You can say in Pakistan, what happened? I gave you the example. How they involved into the changing the government. So a strong democratic system in any country is not liked by the United States. They always try to make the different kind of the collision, division, and then they rule the countries. So in Afghanistan, if they were in the democratic setup, why they were so failed that in 20 years they did not build up a democratic system in Afghanistan, and it was so weak that after a few, just like 20 years they were ruling, and then immediately the Taliban's come and they are controlling the system. No. So the US they create dictators, they create so-called democracies, and then they use and exploit those democracies for their own interest.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, I think we can move on. So the next question is, how can Indonesia overcome the challenges and risks of the Belt and Road initiatives?
Sorry, I didn't understand. Can you again repeat your question?
Okay, how can Indonesia overcome the challenge and risks of the Belt and Road initiatives?
I think that currently Indonesia, like the projects, that ongoing projects that is going on, I think that the Indonesia should be intact with those projects, especially the mega projects there, like the new capital and the railway projects, and then I think there are several more. So if Indonesia will be intact in these projects and will complete, I think that there will be a very positive impact, and you will see that how this project will uplift the communities and the economies, and especially the people who are at very lower stratum of the society.
Okay, is there any follow-up question then?
I think it's good.
Okay, I think we can go back to Rana.
Okay, for the last question, how do you think Indonesia's diplomatic relation with China go forward? As you mentioned that Indonesia is more to China than US right now. Will Indonesia side with China in a world that has a different polarity of power?
I think the policy, they have the very balanced policy right now. And as I mentioned before, that the collaboration of the Indonesia and China, that is quite natural, because there is a lot of Chinese Indonesian population there. There is so Indonesian people can understand the Chinese culture very well, and those propaganda, if we will not consider that one, that is initiated by the Western media or some other media houses there in Indonesia. So we think that this policy is going to be very well, and this strong bond between the two countries will continue, and it's always something like this that we can discuss, and we can say that the China-Indonesia relation in ASEAN is something like exemplary, and it's a role model. So it's always very much warm hospitality from both sides, and we will see that this relation will further grow. Whatever be the government is there, I think that the relation is quite natural between the Indonesia and China, and it's you can say this is ASEAN. The relation between the China Indonesia is like the ASEAN spirit and an Asian spirit. So I think this balanced relation should go on.
Any follow-up question?
Okay, I think it's good. Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I have a follow-up question. Do you think the relationship of us Indonesia with US will go disappear or weakening, or it's still balanced with the Chinese?
No, I think that as you mentioned that this is a multipolar world. In a multipolar world, the countries have their own interest and they will see that that how the relation could be transformed. But you know that the history of the US is always that they try to exploit. They always try to use the countries into different kind of the proxies, in different kind of the alliance, and they always used countries, especially the small countries, against their strategical interest. If Indonesia, and I am sure that Indonesia will not go at that level in which they will see that our alliance or our relation with any country is going to be disturbed. So I think that then of course the relation should be on equality and on the balanced is always, I think, good with any country. I think that there is no limitation between any country, but every country has its sovereign right to define its foreign policy. So the US has this kind of the custom, or you can say that this kind of the foreign policy, that they will dictate the countries to establish their foreign policy. This dictation is, I think, not acceptable for any country, because the foreign policy is made by the country, by the leaders, and by the people of that country. Always. So I mentioned always that this is not the relation of the one country to another country, heads of state. The relation of the countries is always people to people interaction. It is the people who are the taxpayer. It is always those people who pay the tax, their relation from their relation country. So the people of the Indonesia has the relation to the people of the China. The people of the Indonesia have the relation of the people of the United States. It is not the authority of the governments who will exploit, who will dictate the relationship. It is not the ambassadors or you can say that those ambassadors, those high profile people who are enjoying, who are getting salaries on the taxpayer of the people, from the people's money. It is not those who are defining the policies. So it is actually the people of the countries who give the right that on our behalf you have to establish that relation. So I am very, very much straightforward in this thing, that this is the people's relations. People from one country to people from the other country. But those ambassadors who are on our salary, who are on your salary, who are taking salary from your taxpayer, they are taking salary from my taxpaying. They have no right to exploit those relations in any form.
I see. So any other question before we end this interview session?
I think that's enough from me.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your people. Very much interesting, I think, discussion. And you can, I think we can in future also, we will do such kind of communications.
Surely. Okay, thank you, Mr. Malik, for your time. For now, we would like to take a photo for documentation.
Oh, sure, you can.
Okay. Okay. Okay, one more. 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you very much.